Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode. We are out here today in the end, and I thought we would start things... Oh no. We're starting things off today here in the end, and as you can see behind me, we have some bees. So our first project of today is going to be working on a little bee farm. Just for some context, this is the current bee farm that we have here in the AmbitionCraft server. And as you can kind of tell just by its first initial look, in fact, we can go into a little free cam mode over here. It's okay. It's cool. You know, nothing wrong with it. But at the same time, yeah, not the best of setups. And it done the job for quite some time. In fact, it probably still does the job perfectly fine right now, but there's quite a few things wrong with it that I wasn't too happy with, and I thought, you know what, considering that I like poking my fingers in things that probably aren't asked for, I'll give it a little shot and seeing how I can improve it. But some of the issues we had at the moment was currently things like the storage. We're using double chests, which is a weird thing for a server our size, and considering the projects that we end up taking on in this server, it seemed a bit out of place. So yeah, that's number one. Also is the unloading for all like the glass bottles, and then there's also the design of the bee farm. It's not terrible, it's actually pretty good. Obviously it's tileable. It does the job in most cases. It does kind of bonk a couple times actually, because I've used this same design in my single player where it has a few issues where the redstone gets stuck and doesn't dispense the bottles, but that's a whole nother thing. But yeah, everything, isn't it? It's an okay farm. It doesn't do all that much for us though. You can see there's a bunch of unlocked hoppers happening here. When we have this place running, it's not all that lag friendly. And I just think there was a lot that could have been done. So I thought maybe this would be a good idea as a little project that I can do. Because we're going to eventually start needing more and more honey as we expand on the number of perimeters we have, and when it comes to like sweepers and flying machines, all that kind of stuff, you know, honey does come in somewhat handy. So I thought where would be a good place to start in the first place than our old bee farm. And the reason for that, well, was because we kind of have infrastructure set up over here, right? Just go ahead and let myself in. We have the infrastructure set up in here where we can kind of breed bees and collect beehives that we're going to need in order to make things work. So this is kind of what I've been doing for the past couple hours. And actually, in hindsight, a couple hours isn't all that much work when it comes to bees, because bees are a real pain to work with when you haven't got the right infrastructure for them. They kill you a bunch of times, which they have already 3 times in the past 2 hours. And then there's also the fact that you have to breed them, and they're just really annoying. They fly around and they try and escape, like these buggers over here. Get back inside. Get inside. Get inside. Anyway, so I've been doing some breeding, and actually we've gotten a few beehives already filled with bees. And luckily, using mini HUD, you can kind of tell what bees are what. Oh, please stay inside. Anyway, so if we have a look in some of these shulker boxes, we've got all these bees available in these beehives. We've got this shulker box here, and then a little bit in this one as well. But we're going to need a bunch more. So just to be the very minimum requirement for the kind of beehive thing or honey farm I'm looking for, or honeycomb farm, is actually going to be twofold. It's going to be both of them, honeycomb and honey farm. We're going to need 172 was the number that I remember quoting to myself. So that's a lot more shulker boxes than I've currently got. Luckily though, all of these beehives here, all the way down, are all completely filled with bees as far as I know. I can't tell until I break them if they're definitely full of bees, but you can tell by all the pollinated bees flying around that have nowhere to go that we should be fine and they should all be full. You know, I could start harvesting them, but the problem is that I need more bees. So if I get rid of these ones, replace new beehives down, they're all just going to fly in there and I'll have no more bees left to breed. So I basically need to go around now and do the old beehive breeding thing. And even though I need 174 or whatever the number was originally, 172, I'm planning on breeding a bunch more, because I want to have like the ability to expand at the end of it. And I think once these guys are in my new bee contraption, there's not going to be the ability to breed them in there at least. I could always come back here and take care of the same thing, but I think it's probably best that I just like go on like an all-out bee breeding bonanza and hope for the best. So that's the plan right now. I'm going to do a bunch of bee breeding, and then hopefully we can come back again afterwards and see how many beehives we end up with, and then maybe I can kind of show you the honey and honeycomb farm that I've been working on. It's pretty cool. It addresses some of the issues that we have here, and yeah, I think it'll be cool. But let me go ahead and do some bee breeding, and I'll be back shortly. So I think it's time to tally the fruits of our labor. This has been probably about a week or so from since the last clip that you saw, mostly because I got carried away with other projects, which we're going to get into later on in this video. And I thought we should just come in for a quick update on bees. And currently, this is our bee update. Though it doesn't look like a lot, this is currently about 300-ish bees, if I remember correctly. Somewhere in and around 300 filled beehives, all with 3 bees inside of it. So I'm going to consider this mission successful. If we go back in here, there is really nothing left because I've taken out everything there was to use. We're going to probably keep some of this place. I'm probably going to think of a new breeder type because I feel like it might come in handy at some point if we're going to use like the filled bee honey block thingy, the filled beehives with the honey in it, so it's got the particle effects. It might come in useful at some point, so I might break this down and think of another breeder. But in the meantime, this is all done, so everything looks pretty good. And we've got like 300 bees. And actually that gives me the opportunity to expand a bit, because even though I want to keep the a couple of the beehives for rebreeding, we can still use like a whole bunch of them for now. So I'm actually going to double up the scale of the honey farm itself. So the honeycomb farm I'm going to use as 1 unit. You'll see what 1 unit looks like at some point. I'm going to use 4 of the honey farm units. So that should still leave us with about, if my calculations are correct, I should still have about 50 beehives left over, which would still be a good amount for like doing other stuff with, but we'll get to that at another point. But I thought this would be a good opportunity now to take a little break here, and we can go and catch up on some of the progress updates from the what the server's been up to in the past week or so since we filmed this. Obviously, in the last episode, we went through what we were doing for the overworld side of the Blaze Farm perimeter. So let's do a little catch up on what we've been doing, and then we'll come back and see some of the projects that we want to work on today. Honey Farm's been held off for a bit because the project actually got expanded a little bit more than I thought it would. And yeah, it was originally just supposed to be, just the bee farm, the whole redstone thing. Then we got carried away with a new design for the bee farm. And then Eztech done some weird world edit skill trickery because he's the genius of world edit, and kind of made a little design that's going to look nice. Anyway, we'll get back to bees at some point later on. Let's go ahead and have a look at the updates. So last time we were here, we were at the Blaze Farm, and we were kind of working out the overworld side, and then we were going to start the nether side. And actually, we've made some significant progress there. One of the most significant progresses that we've made so far actually is from Dukes, one of the members of Ambition, who actually set up a piston bolt railway to get us, kind of get us there and back a little bit quicker. 2,500 blocks, even in there, there's quite a bit of traveling to do. You can always use rockets, but it's always nice just to have a little AFK way to do it. In addition to that, obviously, it kind of covers a couple other things like the Fortress Farm and the Mesa Quarry, which is quite close to the Blaze Farm anyway. So let's go ahead and jump in, and what we'll do, we'll take a quick trip to the Blaze perimeter, see how things are going on that side. We'll have a look at the overworld, and then yeah, let's see what else we got going on around here. Alright, so here we are in the overworld side of the perimeter for the Blaze Farm, and as you can see, the perimeter here has been completely finished. A couple bits of lava here and there, but nothing too much to worry about. We don't really care about the lava. We're gonna obviously have some decoration and stuff here, which will cover up most of the things. But the overworld side is pretty much done. And speaking of decoration, we've actually, well, one of the members here has actually done some decoration for the perimeter here as well. So the overworld side of the perimeter decoration is done. Obviously, we haven't put it in just yet, as we haven't actually built the Blaze Farm yet. So that's something that we're going to deal with next, but obviously there's a couple of things in the way at the moment which we're dealing with, so I'll get to the Blaze Farm in a minute. But yeah, overworld side is done, and actually the nether side is also done. And this perimeter probably looks a little bit nicer actually, because we've got the lovely old smooth floors. We've got nice smooth floors. Here we got smooth walls. This perimeter actually took quite a long time because, yeah, we had a few issues along the way, unfortunately, with not working out certain parts of trenches and stuff. So that became a little bit of a headache. But yeah, the nether side is also done. We've got smooth walls, smooth floors. We were actually supposed to start building the Blaze Farm quite recently, but we actually came across a little bit of an issue that we have here on the server sometimes. You see, some of the fun parts of a server is always starting a new project and having a whole new thing happening, and it's all fun and exciting and whatnot. But sometimes you end up getting a bit carried away with the new project, and then you forget about an old project. And I think the most important thing is always to have some consistency when it comes to finishing projects. So, as we came towards the end of this, me, Sensei, and 50 built a update suppressor that we're going to need in order to make this thing work, because we're going to need to update trapdoors on top of the system as well. We also wanted a machine that we could just move as opposed to keep breaking and moving and breaking and moving. So we got like a flying machine-based update suppressor that we had to build. So as soon as we built that, we were ready to kind of start building the nether side at least. And then we decided, you know what? Let's go ahead and finish some other projects off first. We got a lot of stuff in the server that kind of just needed a little bit of TLC, a little bit of love. So we decided we'll take a little break on this. We're going to come back to it because mostly the work here is done. And also Wykers is also currently working on the nether side of the decoration as well, that kind of goes with the overworld side that he made. So I thought maybe once we do everything together, it would be a little bit easier. We still have one little issue of breaking the bedrock ceiling, which is probably going to take some time. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and add that to my to-do list really quickly. So the only thing really left here was to break the bedrock ceiling. But again, as I mentioned, we had a couple things around the server which we needed to do, which we actually completed now, so things feel a little bit nicer. So let's go take a little look at some of the projects that we've been dealing with. Again, we'll be revisiting the Blaze Farm fairly soon because most of the R&D and everything else that we really needed for it is done. And yeah, so let's go have a little look at one of the tasks that we wanted to complete before we started continuing with the new ones. But so one of the main things we were working on was the Guardian Farm. So this is the nether side of the Guardian Farm, which was mostly completed. So we did have some issues where we had like parts of the floor had gaping holes in them and like decoration wasn't finished. So that's something that we did too. The other thing was, as you can see the portal here, we had a double portal with the frames and everything on, which isn't an issue, but it just seems a little bit out of touch for a server where Sensei exists, because, you know, he's the king of update and light suppression. And yeah, it just seemed a bit weird to have one of those. So we just set up a really quick update suppressor and destroyed that. So we just had a single block. And so now that's sorted as well. The roof, we had no roof, even though it's only black concrete at the moment. We didn't have anything going for it, which we've now completed too. We've got a bit of a hole in it, but actually ultimately, I think I may have mentioned in the last video, one of the things that we're planning on doing very soon, within maybe the next month or two, is to remove a 1000 by 1000 bedrock ceiling. This is probably going to fall in it as well, so even though some of it looks a bit bonky with just having a random square in the ceiling, that will soon be sorted. If we head over to the overworld side though, so one of the Guardian farms here, I believe it was this one here. So one of them was already set up, had all the portals lit, and everything was completed. But to our shame, one of them actually didn't have that done. I believe it was this one. So most of this roof was not done, and a lot of the portals in here were not lit. All of that has been taken care of now, so this is all up and running to basically full capacity. So we now have the double Guardian farms all set up. There was also a little hole in the floor somewhere, which was not nice, but again, we have now sorted it. And look at this little fella over here. Looks like someone made their way somehow here. Let's get rid of him. There is one last task left to do here, which is the crafting system for all the Guardian drops. We haven't finished it because the member who made it, Willow, has been away for a little while, and I think he'll be back soon, in which case we should have this up and running. It's a very cool system. It actually uses a like a token system where you would take a token, choose the item that you want to craft, so whether it's a lamp or the prismarine blocks. You put it in the system, and then you can basically have all the items come to you, chuck all the crafted items in there, and then it'll be recrafted. Each token, I think, is like a representation of one shulker box. So a very cool system, but it just needs a little bit of touching up and some design, and then we should be done here as well. So that was one of the few things. This project actually ended up taking way longer than we would have thought because of the amount of work that was involved in lighting all the portals and putting the ice in. We thought it'd be relatively easy, but it wasn't. But hey, that's how those things go, right? So now let's go ahead and take another trip back over to one of the other things that we're currently working on. So here we are in another perimeter that we are currently working on. Probably the one that's been taking up the most time on the server, and probably the one that's brought most of the members together recently, because everyone's been kind of involved with this one. So this is the overworld perimeter we've been working on for our XP farm. Now, first of all, it's a pretty large perimeter. Second of all, it's a annoyingly shaped perimeter, and there I go, death. So, as I was mentioning before the subtle death there, This is a perimeter that we've been working on for the XP farm. In addition to it being a pretty large perimeter, it's also a really awkwardly shaped perimeter. Obviously, as I've probably mentioned before, we work quite a little bit on more on design in addition to the whole redstone situation. So this is like one of the more ambitious perimeters that we've been working on. You can't really get a good view of it here. So what I'll do is we'll go into free cam, just so we can get a good look at the perimeter. Now, my render distance is set up to 29, so I'm sure maybe you will or won't get a full image of it. So it's kind of like a three-leaf clover kind of situation. I don't know what you would call it. I don't know the exact shape at the moment. It looks like it looks a little bit phallic at the moment, but don't worry about that. It will soon have its original shape at hand. But you can see here, it's kind of like these clovered off edges. You got 3 edges of it. So far, we've cleared off pretty much the entirety of the middle. We've got these few pools of water left here, but actually we've been making some incredible progress with this perimeter, as we've had quite a lot of people involved in it. There's been multiple members who weren't that active recently, who have been a bit more active and have been helping out. So it's been pretty great. So we've done a fair amount of work, but sadly, as you can imagine, there's probably quite a lot more work here to do. So the main things is these little sections here. These are probably going to be knocked out by wild eaters. Probably going to run one of these straight through all the way to the end, all the way down into this one here. And that should actually probably be the easiest thing to do, just to get rid of that part. Obviously, the last things left are going to be these little sticky little edges here. We're going to have to probably dig out by hand, which, you know, is kind of disgusting, but, you know, you have to do what you got to do. This was kind of an awkwardly placed perimeter as well, as 50 decided to go for an ocean for the XP farm. I assume it was because he thought it looked cool, which he's not wrong about for sure. But, you know, we could have chose a slightly less annoying location where we didn't have to deal with, you know, millions of tons of liquid. But it's all good. This is going to be a cool XP farm once it's done. The decoration for it is pretty much almost done too. But I think actually the decoration was done before anything else was pretty much done. It's something that I think was being worked on for a while. So that's going to be pretty cool once it's done. But in the meantime, we're just doing a lot of digging, a lot of placement. Also made this extremely weird beacon mover, which Epton ended up telling me was too big, and he made one smaller, but that's fine. But yeah, this is just a really cool beacon thing that I made in 10 minutes, which I actually got. That's a schematic of it right there. This is the actual thing, less beacon. So yeah, we're going to finish off the projects here. So hopefully the next time I make a video, you'll see a good update, and we should have most of this perimeter done. And hopefully maybe next time we'll start working on the blaze farm. So with us now 17 minutes into the episode, I think it's about time we get started on what we want to do for today. And if you've already seen the title of the video, you probably figured out that we're going to be working on infinite trading. So infinite trading is something that we've been looking to get started on for a while now, but the motivation for it has gotten a bit stronger, and we decided, hey, this is probably a good time, considering a few of us are available now to get started on things. Let's try and see if we can build the things that we need to get started. Villager trading or infinite trading probably requires a few things to make it a bit more viable for like bulk items. The main thing being is like a macro setup, and the other thing being an actual system to have a reliable system that pushes you in back and through the end portals, and then a good amount of storage, and then refilling of items and stuff like that. So we all got a bit busy with some of the work that we wanted to do to get started. So let's head over to a copy of our survival world, and let's see what the some of the things that we wanted to put in place. And I think the first thing to start off was probably just to figure out what it is that we're actually looking to get traded. So here we are in a copy of our survival world. This is the end realm, where we're going to be building things, and behind me is a list of the items I mentioned, or like kind of the beginning of some of the things we're going to trade. But before we get into too much detail about that, let's talk about how infinite trading works. So the mechanics of infinite trading work quite simply like this. You need to have a villager who's willing to trade with you on one side of an end portal. If I go through this end portal, we will end up at our main end island, or, you know, in at least the one in our creative copy. And all you would want to do is have access to the end portal on this side and the end portal on this side. And essentially all that happens is you have a villager who you've already traded with, who have unlocked trades. Ideally, you would want to have them zombified too, so you could have everything at a really cheap price. But all you would do is you would go through the end portal whilst having already selected the villager's GUI. You would then carry out a trade like so, and then you could exit out, and then if you go back into it, even though he had ran out of trades on that side, you can see here the trade is still available. The reason for that is, for some reason, in some weird glitch, villagers don't seem to pick up on the fact that you traded with them once you go through the portal and the area is unloaded, which is really the main situation behind all of this. The infinite trader basically works is that you unload this area whilst the GUI is still open, and whilst your area is unloaded, you can trade, and he doesn't pick up the fact that you traded. And you can basically keep doing this an infinite amount of times, which is where the name infinite trading comes from. So I can do that again. You can see he's already out. I can go through this portal again. And if we have a look at his trade, you can see it's all still available. I can do this with pretty much any of the trades that he has available here, or pretty much any trade that any of the villagers have. The idea behind what we're actually trying to do here is to ultimately automate this whole process as much as possible, so we can basically farm items that you wouldn't really be able to farm in, outside of infinite trading. And that kind of brings us to the next point. What is it that we actually want from the villager traders? What do we want to infinitely trade with them, and why do we need so much stuff? For that, we're going to have to head over to the copy of our current world, where I can show you a little graph of what we've actually been looking to get. So here we currently have a list of all the items that we are looking to trade, and they've been split into a few different categories. Now, I'm going to try and keep this as quick and as easy as possible because I don't want to get too bogged down on details here. A lot of it will probably be a little bit more apparent once we show you the final results of stuff. But ultimately, this is what we're looking for. We've split the sections up into 3 different categories. Items that we're going to want to have a set amount of filters for, things that we're going to probably be trading a lot of, things that we're always going to want. So in this case, we decided to go for book trades, bookshelves, glass, bottles of XP, which is one of actually the main things that we want to get from all of this. We've also decided that redstone and lapis will probably be the best, some of the best things to get, mainly because lapis and redstone are also traded at the same times that you get the bottles of enchanting. So these 3 actually come together, and hey, why wouldn't you want a bunch of lapis that you can't really get outside of mining for lapis ore? Which obviously you can trade, but if you want an infinite amount of, add that to the automation process. Now we have a bunch of lapis blocks which aren't regularly available, is now available. In addition to that, we obviously want both quartz types. Ultimately, we really just wanted the quartz block itself, but considering that it's coupled up with the same villager, we can trade for both of those at the same time too. In addition to that, we want golden carrots for food, even though we've got a hoglin farm. Golden carrots are baller, so why not grab some of those? Obviously, the books we're going to be needing as well. And the main reason we want bookshelves is because we're going to be recycling the books in order to start trading for enchanted books. So this is the items, the stackable items, which we're going to have permanent filters for, things we're going to have hopefully running on a regular basis to at least get a good amount of items for and have locally stored in the villager trader. The next thing we're looking for is going to be items that we do want, but not things that we're going to want to keep indefinitely as filters. So things that we can hot swap out for, but still things that we're going to probably be looking to potentially trade. So these would consist of apples, for golden apples, for like, villager curing and stuff. I guess we could probably munch down on a few golden apples to show how cool we are. Name tags, of course. All the different kinds of terracotta. Pumpkin pie, just because pumpkin pie. Lanterns, because it's a pretty good decorative block, which will be nice to have as renewable. And we're going to be obviously using the glistening melons, but the reason for this is probably going to be for potion brewing, which is going to be something that we're going to be looking to do sometime in the near future. Obviously glazed terracotta and all the smooth stone kind of blocks as well, or the polished stone, should I say. So the andesites, the diorites, and I think the granite, is the other one that you do. So we're going to be looking to get all of those as well. So these are things that we're going to hot swap out. So again, permanent filters, hot swappable filters. So we just need to make sure we've got a sufficient amount for all of these. And then the last thing we're going to do is the non-stackable items that we're going to want to be also trading. So that's going to be consisting of armor types, weapons, tools. We've left out swords here for some reason. Weapons, tools, and books. This is probably the most important part of what we want to get from infinite trading. These and bottles of enchanting. So armor and weapons and tools for obvious reasons. You die a lot. If you you do. And you don't want to, we just kind of want to do a trade where we can have all of these things available for new members and past members. We kind of want to have these as a no problem kind of situation, because having tools and trading for tools and then always having like a consistent supply where you never have to worry about anything becomes a little bit of a headache as time goes on. So it's nice to have all these available, and then we're going to obviously trade for all the books, which is like I mentioned earlier, which is why we want to get all the bookshelves. And in addition to that, we're also going to want cake, because cake. But in addition to cake, like I said, this is going to be all the bits that we do need. And yeah, ultimately this is the idea. And again, the second main thing we wanted was bottles of enchanting. And the reason for this is probably going to be because, well, we actually have an XP farm which we're looking to, that I mentioned to you earlier, the whole XP farm perimeter we were looking to do. But XP bottles are good to have on hand when you're working on like different projects around your server, and you just want to like set up a quick XP repair station somewhere. If you can have like hundreds of bottles of enchanting or hundreds of boxes of bottles of enchanting just to quickly repair all your tools on site instead of going to a pigman farm or to like an enderman farm, it's nice to have all these things on hand. So this is going to be one of the things that we're definitely looking forward to. So this is kind of like the board of objectives here. We've also kind of calculated how many items you're going to be getting of each item, and how many filters will be needed for those, or how many hopper speed item filters or whatever it is, shulker box loaders we'd be needing. So this is kind of a breakdown here of how much items we get. Interesting fact, this villager trading setup, when it runs at full speed, which only works when the server's pretty much empty and MSPT is super low, this actually generates around 21,000 or 22,000 redstone an hour, which is actually more than the CCS raid farm, which is pretty weird that you can get so much redstone out of this. But this is really cool. And yeah, it's a really cool setup. Again, we're really just trading the redstone at this point because it's available at the time. But we're going to try and keep this to a minimum if we can, because we got the raid farms and stuff as well. It feels trading this at such a high speed seems a little bit OP, but we don't worry too much about that at the moment. So with a goal in mind of what we were looking for and how to get it traded, we obviously set out to design a system that would work perfectly for our ideas, and we have done so. Now, I would just turn around here and you could see exactly what we built, but instead we're going to just cut to the time lapse of the build, and then we'll come back in and I'll break the whole build down for you so you can understand it in a little bit more detail. So go ahead and enjoy the build time here. I wasn't a part of most of it because I was busy that day, so this was mainly built in survival by Dukes and Sensei, but this was a project that me, Sensei, Dukes, and 50 all worked on together. So it's pretty nice, pretty cool build. We'll come back to that in a minute with more explanation, but again, enjoy the time lapse first. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed that. I just want to give a quick big shout out to Dukes, who was, him and Sensei actually were the ones who ended up building this in survival again, or mostly at least. I want to give a shout out to Dukes because he was the one who actually ended up taking the time lapse during the build. And yeah, so this is actually the build for the Infinite Trader done. A lot of it may not totally make sense to you, so I'm going to try and break some of it down. I don't want to get into too much detail because there's a lot to go through on certain kinds of mechanics and what we've used, and I'm going to try and keep things as simple as possible. So the first thing I want to mention is how we would do the Infinite Trader. So if we go through the portal here, give me 1 second. I have my macro on, which doesn't make things easy. So you can see here we have a villager which has been called from our villager trading call there. We use a button just to push him to choose the villager that we want into these slots here. And so this is the guy that we've chosen. So what I've been doing overnight, actually just last night, was AFKing with a librarian to get bookshelves, so we can break those down to get books for which we're actually going to end up trading enchanted books for. So in terms of how it works, so what we would do is we would use the item scroller feature where you would favorite a book, favorite a trade. In this case, we would do books. And then I'd want to go back into the other side. I want to align myself with this block here, because we're going to be throwing items out through that bit. I'm just going to go ahead and shift click all these out of my inventory so you guys can see what happens. I've got a stack of emeralds on me, which should cover me for this journey. But before we start trading, what we need to do is set things up on emerald distribution. Now, we actually decided there was a couple ways to do this. The main one was just to kind of spam with emeralds, but we realized when we were going to use like a macro or the thing that we're currently using, in order for us to do the trades properly, you need to have a free inventory. If you're getting spammed emeralds constantly and your emeralds fill up in your inventory, you're not going to be able to do the trades properly. So we had to think of an alternative solution. So we needed to make sure we were giving the exact amount of emeralds out per trade that we were looking to do. For example, with bookshelves, we use you can do 12 trades at a time, and each trade costs 1 emerald. So in this case, the modifier would be 1 emerald slot plus 12 pulses to make sure we got the exact amount of items. If we were using the same villager to trade other items as well, like for example, you can do 12 trades also with glass. So if I was doing glass at the same time as I was doing the bookshelves, I would just go ahead and activate another emerald slot. And basically the modifiers work in the same way. So depending on how many items that you want to use, how many items you want to trade at a time, and how much they cost, this is always assuming that emerald cost of any item is 1 emerald, because obviously you can pretty much bring any item down to 1 emerald anyway if they don't already cost 1 emerald. So then it's just the modifiers of how many you're trading from one person and how many pulses you need, how many trades you can physically do. So in this case, we've got 1 emerald slot open, as well as a 12 pulse to make sure we always get the exact amount of emeralds that we need per trade. So once we've activated the amount of emeralds that we need for the trade, all I would do is get myself back into position again. So just up here, I've already activated my clicking script to make sure we've got the we've got things going. So all I would do now is push myself into the villager trader. You can see it's picked up the trade from the villager. It's going to trade, push me back into the end portal, and the emeralds will be dispensed back into me via a little trapdoor underneath where the whole dispenser system is running down. So I'm going to do all the trades for it, and everything that I trade for basically just gets chucked out into the where you saw the string. So the string is actually used for 2 different reasons. Number one is to activate the piston to be retracted to push you back in here, and the second is to dispense the emeralds from the main storage of emeralds over there over to the trapdoor, where you can then be restocked and recycle the process. One of the caveats to using the villager trader is that you can't have certain blocks available in a certain radius, because then you end up spawning on those instead. So for example, you can see we've used stairs, an extended piston, because if it wasn't extended, you would end up on top of that instead. The same goes for any of these blocks, which is why we use the stair over here. This is why we've ended up using slabs on this side. We've had to end up using a lot of kind of like blocks that you can't spawn on top of. And that's kind of the weird reason for all of these ones here. So again, yeah, you would so the only block that we can land on, even though it's not a solid block, it is a solid block, but it's a transparent block. So you land on this glass block here. That's where you would end up spawning, and then obviously again being pushed. And so yeah, the string just activates both or deactivates this piston to push us through, and then distributes the emeralds. The emerald distribution is all set up from here through some shortcut unloaders. So we've got 2 4x unloaders for the emeralds, and then if you come over to the other side, you can see there's another one here for books. This will be obviously the distribution. If we were doing enchanted books, we would use this distribution instead, and then that way we would activate, in addition to the emeralds that we need to trade stuff, we would activate the book column here as well. So that would give us the books that we need to trade the items as well. Other than that, you pretty much just have the items travel down through some water streams. We had a bit of an issue with the clicking script that we use, where you would sometimes chuck out a couple emeralds. So what we do is we filter out some of the emeralds from here and just send them back into a water stream back up to the player again. So even if you do end up chucking a few out, it's not really an issue. And the rest of the items just kind of go through a system where they get filtered out. All the items, again, that I mentioned to you before, So if you have a look here, you've got the ones with the chorus fruit are the filler items. So if you want to use a specific item that we haven't already got filtered out, like the glass, the bookshelves, the carrots, the quartz, and all that kind of stuff, then you can just set up a manual filter on this one. Other than that, we've got the unstackable section here. So this is where all the tools and stuff are traded. Other than that, we've got the emerald storage. So all the bulk of the emeralds and the books will be stored in this section here. And what we've set up is a call-in system. So when one of these items loses, or when this loses a shulker box, this will activate this line here, which will shoot all 5 droppers down here to dispense their books. They'll be shot up the line up here, pick up the emerald boxes, and as soon as they're full, it will shut the system off. Any of the shulker boxes that didn't get picked up will just go back into the redistribution system over here. The book system uses a slightly different system because there's only one book slice, so we only do a single call-in system where it shoots out one book shulker box, and then just goes into the system. It automatically turns off by itself at that point. And then yeah, so the main idea of this was quite simple, but obviously setting most of this up took a little while. But it seems like we got pretty much everything down to a T. Unfortunately, due to the fact that you can probably see here, this is the current end, which it's a little bit of a mess, and it isn't really fitting in for what we want here on the server. So I've been working on a new build, which I actually had available for single player, which I may or may not end up building here. So this whole thing won't actually really fit into what we have planned. So I might need to end up redesigning this whole thing again, where it's a little bit smaller and a bit more friendly to the build that we're going to be doing. But other than that, everything seems good. It all seems to be working, and in fact, we've been using it quite a bit even recently. So I mentioned earlier that we were using it for books, and the books have been pretty much used a significant amount. But we've also gathered a fair amount of redstone from this. This actually goes up a fair amount. There's a few more double chests. So even on this side here, you can see quite a bit of redstone available, the same amount in lapis, and actually even the same amount of bottles of enchanting have been traded in all this time. We've gotten a little bit of quartz blocks and quartz pillars, and the books, which are currently empty over here, we actually have a system set up for breaking them down. So obviously we don't need the bookshelves themselves, we need the books. So we have a system that Sensei designed, which he seems a little bit confused about on the bottom left. And it's actually a system that's fast placing the bookshelves, and then is basically blowing up the books on the bottom, and they're being collected down there. So if we have a little look, we should have a fair amount of, oh yeah, we've got loads of, we've got quite a lot of books. Probably need to empty this system out. So you can see we've got all these in books. And that should be pretty much everything that we need. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and end the video right there. I think I've given you pretty much all the explanation that you're going to need for this whole system. And yeah, there was a little bit of a mess up at the end of it, but it turned out not to be an issue and nothing to do with the actual system, just a human error. But that doesn't matter too much. We have a saying on the server, and it's blame 50, and there's a good reason for it. I hope you enjoyed watching the video. If you did, like, subscribe. I'll be making some more AmbitionCraft videos hopefully very soon. We've got a cool build coming. I mentioned bee farm at the beginning of this video and we didn't end on it, but the next episode we will be doing the bee farm. It looks pretty epic and it's got some cool redstone to it as well, which I think you guys will enjoy. So make sure you tune in. Thanks again for watching. Bye.